Well, an Israeli military court is due to deliver its verdict on a soldier who killed a wounded Palestinian man in the West Bank city of Hebron. Elor Azaria is accused of shooting Abdel Fattah al-Sharif in the head as he lay motionless on the ground following an alleged knife attack. Azaria is the first member of the Israeli armed forces to be charged with manslaughter since 2004. Let's cross live now to Greg Carlstrom, who's following the story from Tel Aviv. Hi, Greg. How is this trial, first of all, playing out in Israel, and what are the expectations for the verdict today?
Well, we're still waiting for the final answer to come in. The judges have been reading their verdict for the past hour, but so far it doesn't look good for Azaria. They basically spent an hour deconstructing all of the arguments that the defense made throughout the trial. Their case was built on two very contradictory propositions. On the one hand, they argued that Azaria was worried that this attacker might have a gun hidden under his coat or a bomb hidden there, and so he shot him because he was fearful for his life. And on the other hand, they've argued that Azaria isn't guilty of manslaughter because the attacker was already dead. He had been shot several times before. And the court has basically thrown out both of those arguments. They've said there was no reason to believe that he was fearful for his life. There's video of him and other soldiers standing idly around this attacker for a few minutes chatting, which they wouldn't do if they were worried about a bomb. So they've thrown out that argument, and they've also thrown out the defense's argument that the attacker was already dead. They've ruled that it was Azaria's bullet that killed the soldier. So again, still waiting for a final verdict here, but so far it doesn't look good for Azaria.
And what's the consensus then on how fairly a military court can judge one of its peers?
Well, there's not really a consensus on that in Israel at the moment. Certainly, the army said this is a very clear-cut case of a soldier violating the rules of engagement. They've been very aggressive in prosecuting him for this. From the very beginning, they condemned this shooting. On the other hand, you have a growing number of people in Israel, as it becomes a more conservative and a more nationalist country, who don't believe that this is a fair trial. A majority of the Israeli public, according to polls, does not think he should be prosecuted. We've already heard, the verdict isn't even in yet, but we've already heard from David Bitan, who's the chairman of the coalition from the ruling Likud party, who said that this just proves that the army and the court are ruled by leftists, and that needs to be changed, that the army needs to be made more like the rest of the country. So it's become an issue that has really divided Israel, and despite this hour-long recitation of the verdict by the judges, it's not going to convince a lot of people.
And how important is this trial and its verdict to Palestinians?
Well, I think they'll certainly be satisfied at the verdict if it ends up being a guilty verdict. But it's worth pointing out this is not the only time over the past year where Palestinian attackers who were already downed, already incapacitated, were shot dead by Israeli troops. Really, the only difference here is the fact that it was caught on video and it was released by B'Tselem, the Israeli human rights group, which filmed that. There have been other cases where at checkpoints, there was a shooting not far from here in Jaffa earlier this year, or earlier last year, where a Palestinian, again, had already been shot once by police. And a crowd formed around this Palestinian and started chanting at the police, "Shoot him in the head, shoot him in the head." And an officer did that and killed him. So it may be that there's a guilty verdict in this one case, but there are dozens of other cases that are not being prosecuted.
Okay. Greg Carlstrom joining us there from Tel Aviv. Thanks so much for that.